Welcome, everyone, to our Power Thinking, Rejuvenating Your Amazing Mind training for Wednesday, the last Wednesday in July, July 29th, 2026. This is our 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time edition. I'm your moderator, Stanley Green, and always a pleasure for past 7 years to be before you, helping you to build these absolutely essential skills. Some folks will call them soft skills. I object to that because it's almost like they're skills that are more important. There's nothing more important than learning what we are learning and reinforcing each Wednesday. And so I'm really happy that you're investing the time to to be up on these skills so that you get stronger and stronger in these absolutely important areas that are rooted in psychology, but is actually common sense. So that when that adversity hits, not if anything will ever happen, but when, then you are ready. In parts of the country, we have the typical bad weather uh, in Middle America with tornadoes and heavy storms and wildfires, be it on the West Coast or north of us in Canada. But that's just weather. Anything can happen. Even as I mentioned this morning, losing my keys and not knowing and getting emotional, and then thinking that my son misplaced my keys, didn't put them back in the right place, and as it turned out, I misplaced them. And this. I'm not talking about now at an older age. I'm talking about going back about 17 years or so. These things happen, and there are automatic thoughts that pop up in our head. And we have to be ready, to deal with those thoughts, especially if they're negative and if they trigger any negative emotions. So the goal is to help you retrain your brain. And just by being with us, just hanging in, you don't have to do anything else. Certainly, it helps if you're jumping in and participating and sharing some of your perspectives and experiences. But if you just jump in and hang in there, you're certainly going to come away with something. And now taking it to another level with our Power Thinking Corp app, we we send you push notifications, just kind of thought busters uh, on a daily basis, a few times a day, 2 to 3 times a day, on positive affirmation, a power thinking boost, is something that will ensure that you're not dwelling on the negative automatic negative thoughts that will pop into your head. So we're happy that you're with us. And today, as we continue our skill building, we focus on our power thinking resilience skill number 2, which is avoiding thinking traps. And remember, there are 8 thinking traps. Remember, our brains are processing 50,000 thoughts a day, and 70 to 80% of those thoughts are negative. And most people, they're just kind of moving along according to, where their thoughts will take them, not realizing that they have the power. They have the power to recognize what's going on and to take control, as opposed to allowing these thoughts to take them in directions that they may not want to be. So we focus on emotional reasoning, and the video that we shared, the YouTube video we shared, 6 minutes, is called "Cognitive Distortions Causing Anxiety," and it's all about emotional reasoning. So we rotate this every week. We focus on a different strength or a different skill, and if you're with us consistently, you certainly will see yourself growing in the areas that are absolutely essential. This morning, I spoke with Marie Turner, She actually joined in a little late, and we had the opportunity to talk after the call. And it was just amazing to hear her level of confidence and how much control she has. And she mentioned that, and what power thinking has done for her. She lost a husband about 12 years ago, and um, to find herself, and she really is very, very confident, doing amazing things, and I'm proud that because we are a community, and when she hears from you um, and gets the information from the app and so forth, it really reinforces what we're doing and what we're all about. So let's go into our framework. And I think before we do, let's get our first call from Carla Hill. And feel free to hit that star 6 because I'd like to know what you thought about this video on emotional reasoning. And have you ever experienced emotional reasoning where you thought that what you were feeling was accurate? The feeling it was a fact. I am angry. This is the negative emotion. There are 5 big negative emotions. There's anger, where you have this belief that somebody violated your rights. Somebody did something to you. So I'm feeling angry. So someone must have done something to me. There's guilt. The belief that you violated someone else's rights. There's sadness, which is just a pure loss. There is embarrassment, where there's a loss of standing in a group. And then, of course, the big one is anxiety. This is a fear of some future threat. There are folks that actually have panic attacks. So that's taking this negative emotion to another level as a result of this fear that something's going to happen. And you heard in the video about the example, one of the first examples of, going on a plane and then believing that this person may be a hijacker. But what have you experienced, or what have you helped other people with who you may have sensed? Okay, you know what? You're getting overly emotional, and we really don't have any facts. We don't have any evidence. So let's calm down. And the person will say, no, I believe that this person's, stole something from me. And I remember, a story about a neighbor that I'll tell you a little later, which was really interesting, but it's the typical thing that is happening all day, every day. So let's go first to Carla Hill. Carla, thank you for joining us. Mention where you're joining us from. And I tell you what, I hit the next button twice. So I'm sorry you got bounced out. Hit that star 6. Mention where you're joining us from, and your thoughts about emotional reasoning. Perfect timing, and there you are. Welcome.
Thank you, Stanley. Carla Hill, calling from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And, one of the reasons I come on both in the morning and the evening, gives me time to process. I look at the content, and it's that awareness skill. Like, okay, when is it emotional? For me, when does emotional reasoning occur? What I talked about this morning is just being a human resources professional all these years and interacting with people that you see people at their best in human resources. They get the job, they're so happy. And then when you're walking them out the door also. So it's a lot. Or when there's complaints and when it's the same, sometimes it's the same person making the complaint. But what I also, hearing you talk this evening, there's an acronym called HALT. Emotional reasoning increases if I'm hungry, angry, lonely, tired. That's what the HALT stands for. So, the solution or the mechanism to reduce emotional reasoning is like identify it first. That's what it talked about in the video, right? So I like when you have content that talks about what we pause and come up with coping techniques. If I'm stepping away, if and a lot of times I remember when I'm like in a busy environment and people would say, "Oh, I have a quick question for you." Oh, good. But I know they're looking for an answer from HR. Oh, Carlos said. I'm like, "Oh, I'm not listening to you right now. I've 10,000 things in my mind. You want to come back, or we can set up a time." So it's really just having that agency over keeping that balance, right? And I love the way the framework talks about the awareness skills and the proactive skills. I talked about Travis Hunter playing both offense and defense, and really just listening also to that other person. Sometimes I'm in that emotional reasoning, but the other skills of recognizing when somebody else is and how do we kind of help pull that out. So excellent video. So thank you for allowing me to share.
Well, hang right there, Carla. And again, I want to thank you for inviting us to this morning to your noontime session that was all about student athletes. And it was an amazing session with some great shares and young man who about 22 or so, doing wonderful things in sports, and another who's in his 40s have done, tremendous things. But one of the things that we learn in sports is that emotional reasoning and dealing with our emotions. So for those folks who have been in sports and continue to be in some capacity, what we do with resilience is really key. And we hear about it all the time. We heard where Timothy Butts, trained a elementary school aged Jalen Brunson long before he, got to the pros. And so with the young people, what he talked about was how Jalen Brunson's mother watched him deal with other children and said, "I want you to coach, my son." And I'm sure it wasn't as much about the skills of basketball as it was about the other side of it. And the side of it where Jalen was interviewed and would mention the word resilience. And the big part of resilience is what we're focusing on here, that skill of emotional reasoning, not getting too upset. So that's something that I'm sure you've noticed as your children participated in sports as well, Carla.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it just adds a grounding. And in baseball specifically, when you think about it, the best hitters hit 300.
Yeah.
So that means 70% of the time you are hitting a fly ball, striking out 70% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
You're not being successful.
Right.
So how do you really deal with that every day, right? So I just think it really depends, and it teaches you to have that balance.
Yes, definitely. Well, thank you very much, Carla. Really, really appreciate it. When I think about if you watch now with their WNBA is on with many players, it gets really intense and really physical. There's the negative emotion of anger in there many times when, because folks are pushing each other and getting really physical. And then and you're up and down. So you're really getting tired as well. And sometimes anxiety can play in, this fear that perhaps you're not going to be as strong at the end of the game. But what happens is if someone is fouled and they go to the foul line, what is the first thing that a player does when they are at the foul line and they have a close up on them? You'll see them do what? Sometimes they'll close their eyes and take a deep breath. Even if they're not closing their eyes, they'll take a deep breath or two to calm themselves down, so that all the emotions that they were experiencing can dissipate somewhat, and they can concentrate. Remember, calming and focusing is one of our skills of resilience. And so one of the first things they do in order to regulate their emotions, which is one of our 7 inner strengths that we want to build that helps us to become resilient, is to take those deep breaths and calm oneself down. And that applies not just to sports, but in life. But athletes will tend to do it more because those skills every day they're told, they're reminded to do these things. So it becomes ingrained. So it becomes automatic when they go to the foul line. And this is what these calls are all about. And what our app is all about in sending you those notifications, the push notifications, multiple times a day to remind you of what's important. So that emotional reasoning, it's all about making sure that we take some time to think about what's going on with our emotions and not automatically respond to what we may be feeling, thinking that it's right. In relationships, many times folks may be suspecting that their significant other may not be loyal. Perhaps they're cheating, and you're having this feeling. And some may call it intuition and say, well, I just have this feeling and I'm probably right. So I don't even want to think about going through any evidence. I know I'm right. And how many times has that happened? And they were absolutely wrong. And then, felt embarrassed about the whole thing because they let their emotions pretty much dictate what they believed about a situation, as opposed to calming themselves down and searching for evidence before making accusations, saying something that they would regret later. These are the things that go on every day. And then things can escalate as a result. But as power thinkers, you are in more control. Gladys Bryce, good to see you. She says, hello, everyone. If you're on LinkedIn, feel free to leave a comment and say hello. So let's go through, why we do what we do, where all of this started. And a couple of weeks ago, we talked about learned helplessness. And this was the 60s, was kind of a shift in psychology away from, things that may have happened in your early life and your environment, which dictates who you are and what you do, to our cognitions, to our thinking. And it was in the 60s where cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, what is commonplace today, was born. And it was also in the 60s where Dr. Martin Seligman, who's considered the father of this new branch called positive psychology, helping the people become more positive as opposed to just focusing on mental illness, where through his experiments, discovered that there is something called learned helplessness, that through a negative experience, a traumatic event, consistent failure to succeed, that people tend to just give up, feel powerless. And even though they do have the power within them to succeed, and it's kind of, I talked about with one of our members, Marie Turner, who just sounded just tremendously powerful versus where she was early on in the journey with power thinking, where folks can actually tap into this power and move forward. And so Seligman started studying the opposite. Once he discovered that, people can actually learn to be helpless. They're not born helpless. That can they learn to be optimistic? Can they learn to be resilient? And yes, and the key was in, as Carla was mentioning, was in the awareness, being more aware of what's going on in our heads and tapping into the power to be able to, control. Your thoughts are going to happen, but we don't have to react. We can respond appropriately. So 50,000 thoughts, 70 to 80% of those thoughts are negative. And then our goal is to build these strengths, 7 of them that are not psychological jargon, but basically common sense. And that's what I love about it. You know, he had a bunch of psychologists that came up with things that we already know about. It didn't create new jargon. And there are a lot of psychologists and scientists who come up, because they want to write a book, and then so they have their terms, and they try to make it sound as sophisticated as possible, because they want people to know, how smart they are. But in this case, what they did was they came up with things that we all know about, and that's why we stay with them. You won't hear me talking about a lot of new terms. We will reinforce what's already there and what already works. The first, of course, is emotion regulation. So this emotional reasoning, this thinking trap that we want to be able to control and be aware of when it happens, impacts our ability to stay calm under pressure. That's our inner strength, number one, emotion regulation, that ability to stay calm under pressure. And coupled with impulse control, the ability not to say or do the first thing that comes to mind, we pretty much have a good part of our resilience covered. Think about how many people are not in society or have been incarcerated as a result of poor emotion regulation and poor impulse control. And then when they get to hearings and sentences, many of them will apologize and unfortunately have to spend years, and in some cases the rest of their lives, paying for this one breakdown in emotion regulation and in impulse control. And impulse control is the ability not to say or do the first thing that comes to mind. Next is empathy, the ability to understand another person's experiences and emotions. Then there's self-efficacy, the belief that we have the ability to succeed, and we have control over our ability to succeed. Next is optimism, the view that all things will eventually have a successful outcome. That takes a level of positivity and resilience that's absolutely key. Next is causal analysis, drilling down to the root cause of a situation or problem. And of course, when we're emotional, we tend not to kind of find the evidence. We tend not to drill down to root cause. We'll simply operate on what we are feeling, which could cause all kinds of problems, compound issues, can escalate issues. So emotional reasoning is really key. And of course, reaching out is our seventh of the seven inner strengths. So there's seven strengths that help us to become more resilient. And reaching out is about connecting with others and taking action when faced with setbacks and challenges. Think about it. If you're emotional and you're steaming about something, hey, you suspected somebody, stole something, then you're going to tend not to reach out and seek some advice. You're going to be steadfast in your erroneous belief because of this emotion. So I mentioned a neighbor from years ago who had a cleaning service and accused the cleaners. And this happens with folks. There was a movie called The Help where someone was accused of stealing something. The Help was accused of stealing something, and in this case, the Help was accused of letting the cat out because they couldn't find the cat. And so immediately it was emotional, was anxious, was angry that the cat is out, and then immediately accused the housekeeper of letting the cat out. Just jumped to that conclusion. It was very emotional, and no one, and friends were around, and no one could convince this person that otherwise. And ultimately, they found that the cat was hiding somewhere in a closet, and had to apologize to the cleaner. And the cleaner just said, "You know what? I'm just not going to work with you anymore." That one stretch of poor emotion emotion regulation as a result of their emotional reasoning that, hey, I'm feeling this way. I feel that, someone did this to me. I'm angry. And then I believe that this cleaner violated my rights by opening the door and letting my cat out. And they just went on. So it is really stunning how off the rails we can become with something that is relatively simple and something that's relatively solvable. So this skill, the emotional reasoning, avoiding this particular thinking trap, is one of the 7 skills that helps us to get stronger in the areas that we identify. So there are 7 other thinking traps, and avoiding thinking traps, again, one of the 7 skills of resilience. Thinking traps was developed by who is considered one of the fathers of cognitive behavior therapy. So I'll focus on today. There is, and we talked a few weeks ago, there is, of course, avoiding thinking traps. And the thinking traps, in addition to emotional reasoning, are jumping to conclusions, right? Personalizing, beating ourselves up too much. There's externalizing, blaming others. There's minimizing and magnifying, where we minimize the positive things that happen in our lives and we magnify the negatives. We mind read, we think we know what someone else is thinking, or we expect them to know what we're thinking. We overgeneralize. We operate with tunnel vision. And of course, our focus for today, emotional reasoning. So, it's amazing. So, if we're more aware of these thinking traps, we can go very far in terms of our ability to bounce back from life's adversities. And then just one of the 8 thinking traps alone, you can see how powerful are in terms of how they impact our emotion regulation, our impulse control. So emotional reasoning. I feel this way. I feel someone stole something from me. I feel someone is cheating on me, or what have you. How that can cause someone to be tremendously emotional from a negative standpoint. And that's just one of the thinking traps. So beyond thinking traps, the third awareness skill, the skills we need to be aware of, is detecting these iceberg beliefs. Then we move into 4 action skills. There's challenging those beliefs. Yeah, these deep-rooted beliefs, you challenge them, you change them. There's putting things in perspective. In the morning, practicing gratitude, putting life in perspective. Before going to bed tonight, write down 3 good things that happened today. Then there's, of course, calming and focusing. And one of the ways, if you detected that you may be emotional, overly emotional, you want to calm yourself down. 6 seconds, inhale. 6 seconds, exhale slowly. Makes a world of difference. As I mentioned, you see it with athletes all the time. But humans, you don't see it as much. We need to do it when we need to encourage others to do it, especially when we are experiencing a negative emotion. And of course, real-time resilience. As we practice those skills, we'll find ourselves bouncing back in real time. So I see Leona Martin, who says, hello all, greetings from Boston. Welcome, Leona. Leona's been with us for a few years and is a Power Thinking Corp mobile app user, as is Gladys Price, who joined us as well on LinkedIn. My emotions are not good right now. Philadelphia has been blessed with my favorite basketball player. Oh, Jaylen Brown. Right. Yeah, sorry to hear that. We're feeling pretty good. In the Philadelphia 76ers fans are feeling pretty good. Jaylen Brown. Sorry, Stanley, I couldn't resist. No problem there. And that's justified. He was a great player. We were shocked that we were able to get him. And then on top of that, we got LeBron James as well. So watch out, world. Here we come. And LeBron is one that's going to actually help everyone else to be more resilient, to keep their emotions in check because of the incredible experiences that he's had and the championship pedigree that he brings to the table. So I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. Make sure you, if you don't have the Power Thinking Corp app, go to the Google Play or the Apple Store and install it. It's no-brainer pricing, a free trial. This is a movement, and we want you to be part of it. So remember, since we spend all of our time thinking, these 50,000 thoughts a day, we must think with power and utilize power thinking. So our folks on our phone lines, I'll only get to mention a few of you as we get out. I see Soyika White and Carla Hill and Claudia Nesmith, great to have you, and Gail Turner and Gloria Hairston and Calvin Patterson, Joyce Clark, Gregory Jones, Layla. Well, everybody, thank you so much for being with us. We will see you again next week. Make it a fantastic remainder of the week. Take care, everybody.
Take care.
All right, we'll see you. And folks here on LinkedIn, we thank you. Yeah, Boston is definitely in trouble now. I see the comment. I can't wait. It should be a lot of fun for us because I'm a big LeBron fan. So I was rooting for the teams that he was on. Now he's back at my home team. I can root for the Sixers again. Thank you very much, everyone. Take care and have a great remainder of the week.